I don't have anything planned to talk about. It's just so nice out here in the morning when there's no one around. Or relatively, no one around. Except for that fucking sprinkler. Last night I did a thing about the homelessness thing. But then after that, on the way back, I ended up doing this 20 minutes on, it was supposed to be about prayer, because I was talking about how I should do some kind of prayer before I go out at night. A lot of times I usually do the intention mantra about demons and shit, but having a prayer isn't a bad idea to start off everything with. And I was just thinking about the the go-to one for me and for a lot of other people is the Our Father. And I thought about how it's been changed. The Mandela effect has affected the Bible a lot. It made a lot of changes. It brought in a lot of weird things that weren't there before in the Bible. Now it talks about unicorns and all this other weird kind of stuff. Modern words have been put in there too that weren't there before. One of the big ones people always talk about is the lion and the lamb thing is now the wolf and the lamb. And I still hear people say lion and the lamb all the time. I heard a girl on a podcast mention lion and the lamb, and it's not lion and the lamb anymore. I think of all those paintings growing up, different artist depictions of the lion laying with the lamb, and a lot of different rock songs, different instances where they use that term, that a lion and the lamb, and it doesn't exist anymore in this reality. It's wolf and the lamb, which is just, I don't know. But another thing, stupid, right? Another thing too is in that prayer, it used to be forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Well, now it's forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. It's about owing money. And that, I know it's probably a Mandela effect, but to me it feels like a rabbi effect, because they do put a lot of things, sprinkle it throughout, to kind of cover themselves, like that whole turn the other cheek thing is been it's translated wrong. The way they put it in the Bible, from what I understand, makes it seem as if let people fuck you and you can't do anything about it, and that seems very much like a rabbi thing, because they have to sprinkle these things in there so that if you find out what they're doing to you, you don't kill them. That's what it feels like to me. It's like, forgive your debtors. They're not evil people. They just gotta make their shekels. So when they put you on the street, you gotta forgive them. That's what that feels like to me. It's weird, their situation with the Bible. I'm not gonna get into a big JQ thing, but they do all the translations, But the Bible, and I go back and forth. Well, not really. It sounds like I go back and forth on it a lot. I read it a lot. I refer to it, but at the same time, I'm also trying to say that it's just a book, because it is really. Ultimately, but there is truth in it, and there's some sort of holy power or energy or whatever you want to call it. I've said before that, in my opinion, and I'm not the only one to take the blame for this idea, but it's a magic book. It's a book on magic. Psalms being the spells, Proverbs explaining how the spells work, and this magic has kind of been passed down. When you think of how Jesus, the things he did, it kind of lines up in that way, and everyone has their own interpretation of it and stuff, but I'm coming to it as a new student of the Bible within the past, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years. And as time goes on, I get more and more into it. I read it now a lot more than I ever did. I supplement that with all those little devotionals, and it's very much turned into a red string situation, like so many other things in my life. But a lot of it is translated from Hebrew. So you need those guys to do it. But I think there's some kind of protection there that allows them to not completely screw with it. Because if they could, they would. You know, they would completely change the meaning of everything. But I don't think they can. They can do it with some stuff, and they do. You know, the examples I mentioned earlier. But I think there's some kind of protection on it, some kind of spell that keeps them from being able to completely screw with it. And again, it comes back to that truth and bullshit thing. You know, they have to wrap the bullshit in truth so that you confuse the frequencies, and you think what you're getting is all truth when half of it's not truth. Like any of these guys, these COINTELPRO guys, or these gatekeepers, you know, a lot of online people too, the Alex Jones types, and where they got to give you a little bit of truth. And it's because that little bit of a truth carries a certain frequency. Lies have their own frequency. The truth has its own frequency. That's how you can determine sometimes if you think someone's, like, you know, lying to you. You don't know how. You just kind of, I don't know, I feel like this guy's lying. Because it's a frequency. It's a different frequency. So what they do is they try to mix them together. And that's why they always have to give you some truth with all their BS, you know? Because a lot of people wonder that. They're like, well, how come they give you any truth at all? Because that's the hook. Because you can tell what truth is, even if in the front of your brain you're not realizing it. Subconsciously and innately in some part of you, you know that there's some truth hitting you. You know, there's some truth in what they're saying. And then they obfuscate that. They wrap their BS with the truth in a frequency sense. So when it comes to you, you think, oh yeah, that sounds, there's something right about that. Yeah, I think I can get on board with that. And the hope is that you take in the BS and believe that along with the good stuff they gave you. So I think there's some kind of thing like that going on with the Bible as well, where they have to include some of the truth. So it could be protected in some way, or it could just be a case of, you know, we have to give them some truth so that they believe the BS in here, you know, because they don't have our best interest in mind. Their God is the God of the Old Testament, who to me, you know, sounds a lot like the demiurge. You know, he sounds a lot like a satanic figure. The way they describe him too, having a snout and wings. He's got that tent, that tabernacle in the middle of the desert with an endless line of blood sacrifices coming to him. It just seems weird. It's like, wow, he's really hungry. He must be a big guy, or a big dragon monster demiurge thing. So he's their guy. So it's kind of hard to trust that they're gonna deliver the good news to me. And I mean, just by looking at the world we're in today and see how they treat everyone that's not in their group, the plans and designs they have for all of us who aren't in their group, having a certain amount of us be their slave to each one of them. It's really weird stuff. And whether or not it has any validity to it, they definitely believe it, and they're trying to push things in a direction to bring about the return of their Messiah. And they're at least, and the thing I always think, right, like, just because they're creating the circumstances or the environment that sounds like Revelation is biblically, even though they're making it happen purposely themselves, is it still this? I mean, it's to an outside observer, or maybe someone 100 years in the future, it just looks like it happened naturally, and was the original end times natural occurrence anyway. Because I think these things are cyclical. I think this has happened already, and it's happening again. Especially like if you really look at Revelation. And hanging with Stan, that channel I talk about sometimes, he's going through Revelation right now, and I can't point to any certain passage, but just the way it's written, kind of, it doesn't sound like they're like describing a possibility, or they're describing what will happen. It seems like they're describing something from having seen it, witnessed it, or something that happened in the past, like it's something that already happened. And that's a whole nother issue. I think I touched on like 5 or 6 different really deep rabbit holes in the past 10 minutes that are just tangentially related, if even that. So that's just the kind of things I think about when I get up in the morning and come out here. Average stuff, just. I'm sure everybody's thinking about that too, This guy, he's got the demiurge on his mind, Everyone does. That stuff's fun. Well, I mean, it's fun for me. It's interesting to look into, but I try not to get too caught up in it, because the basic situation is there's a bad force and there's a good force. And this whole thing, and I hear it all the time about like, well, people talk about the Old Testament God. They're like, well, he has good and evil in him, because good and evil are really just perceptions, and they're the same. Anytime anyone's trying to sell you that gray area thing, and most occultists will say that too, like, the enlightened man is beyond good and evil. No. To me, all that says to me is sometimes it's okay to fuck kids. That's all it says. That's all they're saying there. You know what is good, and you know what is evil. And the whole thing about, well, if you didn't have evil, you wouldn't know what good is. Bullshit. Of course you would. Yeah, I don't need evil to know what good is. I can look at a piranha tank. I don't have to stick my hand in there to feel to meet my hand off to know it would be bad to stick my hand in there. You don't need. That's bullshit. Like, oh, if you didn't have this, you wouldn't understand that. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. It's just a back door for effing kids. That's it. And so much of our culture is permeated with that too. That gray area. Modern Disney movies. If you'll excuse the sidestep into that bullshit, are always making these movies to try to get you to understand the villains more. Like, you think of that the witch or the queen from Cinderella, with Angelina Jolie. They had the 101 Dalmatian villain. They're taking these villains and they're trying to recontextualize them to make you feel bad for them. That's more of the, well, evil's just a perspective. No, it's not. No, it's not. You can't look at the torture and other terrible things being done to a child and say, well, it's point of view. No, that's evil. That's wrong. There's, I mean, I know that's an extreme example, but this way you have to take it because that's a possibility, right? Because if you sign off on the everything's okay, it is a perspective, then you're fucking signing off on that. No, that you don't need to fuck kids to know that not fucking them is better. You don't need that. You don't need those. You know what I'm saying? I'm just I'm running over the same ground here. That thing about there is no good and evil is just bullshit, and you should be a bit suspicious of anyone, that tries to to rope you into that way of thinking. And that's a lot of people in like occultism circles and magic circles or whatever. A lot of it is that, you know, that's one of the first things most occultists will tell you. How you doing, man? Is, you know, the enlightened man is beyond good and evil. And that's horseshit. It's always been horseshit. It will continue to be horseshit. And, yeah, don't go into that. Because if you are, then you're signing up on a lot of bad shit. We know what's right. We know what's wrong. We don't need to indulge in it to know it, you know? Okay, whatever. I'm a fucking beating horse here. Alright, man, I always want to do something that's uplifting, but I always end up in this kind of stuff, you know? And I always think that too before I start. Like, I should share something good and positive. And it always ends up with molestation and sacrifice. I don't know. What are you going to do? I'll come back with something better and more uplifting. I know I say that every day, but I'm going to really try. Can't guarantee it though. It's a fucked up world, you know. Don't blame the teacher. Blame the school.